You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society.
And now, in Disney.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to another rockin' awesome Saturday night, as we say up here in New England. We have got some great programs coming up, but we have Connie and we have Rich Broogie coming in from North Carolina. So why don't we bring them on right now, make sure we got a good connection. Hello, guys.
Hello, Rick.
Hi, Rick.
So anyways, tell us about your program tonight.
Yeah, it's a run-on, or it's an extension of the series we started about the mental illness in the Jehovah's Witnesses. And this second one we're doing, we've titled it Brainwashing, Insanity, and Craziness in the Watchtower.
Wow, well, it sounds pretty interesting. I'm looking really forward to the program tonight. So I'll cut you guys loose, and I'm here if you need me, and the telephone lines will be open. I'll put the number up on YouTube and Facebook, so they'll see that. So you guys go ahead, take it away. I'm here if you need me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rick. And hello, everybody. This is Rich Broogie, as Rick alluded to, from South Carolina. I'm here with my lovely wife, Connie. I don't speak any Spanish. Connie does a little, but I hope the Spanish brothers hang in there. Hope you're bilingual and you like the program. What we're going to try to prove during this program is that the Watchtower is not inspired. The governing body is not inspired by our Heavenly Father, who they call Jehovah. It is not inspired. They make up rules and regulations that everybody must follow or be disfellowshipped and destroy their opportunities to live in a paradise earth and destroy their relationships with their parents and their children. And when they get disfellowshipped, if people don't agree with their stance. What we're going to try to let people know is there are two specific forms of mental illness that affect Jehovah's Witnesses. We're going to get into it in a bit. The first one is post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's highlighted by being hypervigilant, being in distress, being confused, and just kind of being in anguish. And that's caused by your life is always on hold. That's caused by knowing that Armageddon is going to be right on top of you at any second. They've been preaching that for 100 years. Armageddon, the worst condition mankind will ever be in. If the days weren't cut short, no flesh would survive. That's PTSD. And again, it stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. Many Jehovah's Witnesses suffer from it. They suffer from depression, and they suffer from anxiety. That is something we're just going to touch on briefly because we touched on it last week. And the other mental illness is called cognizant dissidence. All of a sudden I'm tongue-tied. Cognizant dissidence. And that's a mental discomfort in holding two conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. People tend to see consistency in their attitudes, their perceptions. So this conflict causes unpleasant feelings, uneasiness, and discomfort. And so it's highlighted by anxiety, embarrassment, regrets, sadness, stress, negative feelings of self-worth and self-esteem. Okay, we're just going to highlight those two mental disorders. There are many more. On the PTSD side, we have, distress that is caused by feeling that Armageddon is going to come anytime. You can't make any decisions, can't make any long-term decisions. I will tell the audience that when I came back from Vietnam, I was diagnosed with PTSD. It took 20 years for the diagnosis to come to nutrition. But once I did, I had to go to vet groups to heal. And the biggest avenue for healing for me was just prayer. So what I'm suggesting to this audience is, if you want to heal from the PTSD, there are a lot of good books out there. Currently, I'm reading the book, The Reluctant Apostate. Ray Franz's book is outstanding. Snell's book, About 50 Years, A Watchtower Slave, is outstanding. And you have a lot of wonderful programs like Six Screens. You've got, well, I can't name them all, but there's a lot of books that shine a very, very bright light into the Watchtower. It's trickery, it's deceptions, it's lies, it's false prophecies, and the way people are treated. They're treated very, very unfairly in this organization. Two people can commit the same crime or the same sin, and one will be severely punished, and the other one they just sweep under the carpet. As we know, it's been proven that the Watchtower has been sweeping pedophiles underneath the carpet, and it's now coming out, and they're being sued, and they're being fined, and they're pretty upset about it. But it's a fact that they cannot deny. The gist of what we're going to be talking about this evening is that a lot of people that are on the fence, they don't know if the Jehovah's Witnesses really have the truth or not. We've been pointing fact that they do not have the truth. It's based on a lot of lies, their twisting of the scriptures, their deceit. We want to show this evening, and we've been actually doing this for Six Screens has been for almost 20 years, that the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses are really warped men. They do not have our Heavenly Father's Holy Spirit. These dictates and directions that they come out with, they make them up themselves. And these men, very pious, super studious people, well, we know the majority has never gone to college, so the knowledge they have all comes from an organization that's deep within lies, deep within deception, and they're in business to make money. And also, it's been quite proven lately that these governing body members, Anthony Morris, for an example, these people aren't living very pious, righteous lives. I know one thing that I've always put out on Six Screens many times is Jeffrey Jackson. Well, we know he lied to the Royal Commission, but did you also know he's driving a $500,000 automobile, and he also has a Dodge with 850 horse. That's the fastest car you can, I think you can buy horsepower-wise. I guess he has a Dodge Demon. I guess he has to get back to those return visits as fast as he possibly can with that super fast car. But doesn't it make you wonder where he got the money to buy this car? Some people say, well, it was given to him, it was a gift. Really? So he has, the person that gave him the car must be Jehovah's Witness, because he wouldn't have relationships with anyone who isn't a Jehovah's Witness. So where did he get the $500,000 to buy the car? They would say it was given to him. Well, if that person that gave him the $500,000 car was a Jehovah's Witness, wouldn't that money be better served to give it to pioneers for gas money? I mean, we all know what the scriptures say about the showy displays of one's means of life. Well, here the guy's driving a $500,000 car. A lot of witnesses don't realize they have their own little Air Force. And these aren't little cheap Piper Cubs. These are the best. These are Streamlines. These are very expensive airplanes that they fly all around the country in. Anyway, because I'm just kind of rambling here, but I just want people to realize that they say one thing and they do another, and that is the cause of a very severe mental illness called cognizant dissonance. And it's a mental illness. And some of the things that cause that would be just, again, this is an overview of what we talked about last week. They absolutely emphatically said in The Truth That Leads to Everlasting Life, that little blue book, 10 million copies, it was printed in 1966. They said that Armageddon, the start of the pains of destruction, the end of the Gentile times, was 1914. They said it was a definite. They used the word definite. And they said it would end definitely in 1975. And then when 1975 came and went, nothing happened. You didn't hear anything from the governing body about it at all. Nobody said nothing. There wasn't any watchtowers about it. They did address it years later. But, that's what cognizant dissonance is all about. You believe something, you believe wholeheartedly. You believe it so much that you quit your job, sell your house, go to where the need is great, live in a little trailer. And then 1975 comes and goes. You're out of a job, you've lost your home. You've got nothing. Will the Watchtower ever try to help you out, maybe give you a down payment for a house because you work for them? No, not on your life. They wouldn't give a cent to anybody. There's many, many stories that, we've brought out over the years. I have a good friend, Mark Palo. His aunt was a missionary. I think it was Brazil, could have been Argentina, down South America. 40 years she was doing that. And when she died, they didn't even notify the family, and the family was all Jehovah's Witnesses. So what did they say to the family? Well, if you want the body to be sent back to New York for burial, you'll have to pay for it yourself. That's the constant distance about. You think they're a loving, sweet. They love their brothers, and the work is everything. No, it's not. What is everything is turning kingdom halls into cash, buying expensive buildings. They're a real estate company. They were a publishing company. Now they're a real estate company. But I'd like you to know that is what cognizant dissonance is. You believe one thing, you're sure of it, and then the Watchtower does something completely different. I would tell you, I'm from Drake, Massachusetts, and we built a Kingdom Hall in '72. It wasn't a quick build. It took us a couple of months, but we really worked our fannies off getting that Kingdom Hall up. The best of everything went in there. And then when it was all built, it was a one beautiful looking building. And we were all so proud of it. And one of the anointed brothers on the governing body came to give a talk to dedicate that building to Jehovah God. That building, again, was dedicated to Jehovah. Now, the Watchtower will tell you that Jesus did not die on a cross, but he died on a torture stake. Well, that was something that Russell brought in. In Russell's time, he died on a crucifix. That Kingdom Hall was sold off. I remember contributing like $100 to it, which to me in those days was like $1,000, and working my fanny off for that Kingdom Hall. And now it's in the hands of another religion. And right on the roof, as large as you can see, is a crucifix. Again, they dedicated that building to Jehovah God by an anointed remnant governing body member. So that will cause you to scratch your head and say, what's going on here? This is nuts, you can't go in the military as a JW, but in Russell's time you could. and the rest of the time he could salute the flag. You know, you could do all that stuff. The discreet slave at one time was all these hundreds of anointed brothers, or thousands, scattered throughout the world. Now the anointed remnant, the discreet slave, is just those 8 professional liars that constitutes the governing body. So there's a lot of that. I just want to tell you a quick story how it involved my life, this cognizant dissonance about. When I was studying the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses, I was told that Jehovah's Witnesses will never be blood guilty because they never go in the military. They go to prison first before they would go into the military because they would not want to be blood guilty. All right, well, that made sense to me because I had been in a war, and it is a very, very nasty thing. So I said, wow, these people, they come around in 3-piece suits, and they're not making any money. They're not taking up collections like other churches do. Wow. And the members are so sincere about not killing somebody. They don't go into the military. And when I went in the military in '67, they had the draft till 71, I believe, or 70. And if you refused the draft, they could put you in prison. And they did to a lot of brothers. So I thought, this has to be the truth, that God's people would never kill another man in combat or anything like that. Made a lot of sense to me. So I took my discharge from the Marines, which I love being in, and I said, this is great. So I'm sitting in the auditorium, ready to get baptized. Then they had a drama. They always have a drama right before the baptism. And in that drama, they had the situation about Jericho. You know, God said, at least they claim God said, march around it 7 times, blow your horns. The walls, these big cement brick walls will come down. You climb over the walls and you kill everybody and everything. Well, wait a minute. I'm saying, well, those are God's people, and they're being led by Jehovah, according to, to the Old World Translation, the Old Testament, and they're killing people. Well, when did God change, that his people can now kill people? I understand Sodom and Gomorrah, God killed the people, put fire and brimstone down on them, and because of their homosexual behavior, they were all killed. Because of, they led a very decadent lifestyle, they were all killed. But so I was walking out of my my baptism, and the presiding overseer grabbed a hold of me, and he said, "Listen," he said, "once you get baptized, the Holy Spirit will be upon you, and you'll understand." Well, I still don't understand. Okay, so those are these things we wanted to talk about. Those two things about PTSD and cognizant dissonance. And if you want to read some stuff that's really kind of crazy, where this cognizant dissonance comes in, you're going to understand when you hear this that decisions that affect your lives tremendously, particularly your sex life, is something that they vote on. There's no Holy Spirit. You only need the Holy Spirit to go to one man, and that one man tells the congregation, like in Jesus' day, the Holy Spirit came to Jesus. He told his apostles, and they didn't deliberate. If they didn't understand, they could ask questions. But in the governing body, these men do not, and I repeat, do not use the Holy Spirit, or even claim to use the Holy Spirit, or even do they pray before these meetings. Tell you a quick story. When Rick Farron was disfellowshipped, he brought a tape recorder in, and now you're going to disfellowship an anointed brother, in the true sense of the word, an anointed brother. You're going to disfellowship him for telling the absolute truth about the society and what goes on in it. And they didn't even pray over it. I tell you, if I was an elder and I had to judge an anointed brother, I mean, my knees would be knocking. I would get myself off that committee as fast as I could. But they had no problem, disfellowshipping Rick, without prayer, without any real debate. That's just the way they are. So I'm gonna turn this over to my wife, and we're gonna talk a little about the nuts, the craziness with sex. You want me to do it? I'll do it.
Yeah, you
start. All right. I'll start it off. Okay.
Did you want to bring this up about the abortion?
Not just yet. Okay. We are going to go here.
The 72 Watchtower.
Yeah, the 72 Watchtower. It says, around the same time as this mayhem was unfolding, laws were handed down regarding homosexuality and adultery. In January 1972, Watchtower announced that adultery had not been committed if it did not involve sex between a man and a woman. While both homosexuality and bestiality are disgusting perversions, in the case of neither one is the marriage broken. So let me say that again. In the case of neither one is the marriage tie broken. It is broken only by acts made by individuals, one flesh, when a person of the opposite sex other than his or her legal marriage mate. So basically what they're saying is, if you commit homosexuality or bestiality, it isn't grounds for the divorce and is not grounds for disfellowshipping. Now, this is something they debated and went back and forth with this for weeks, but that's what the conclusion was.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what's so interesting about this is I remember when I was in the organization. Now we're taking this from the 1972 Watchtower, and Watchtower's doing all these bedroom laws, bedroom rules, and just to bring it sort of up to date. We had a brother and sister in our congregation. They were a lovely couple. They really were. They had a son. Son was maybe about 5 or 6. And this brother was a ministerial servant, and he had gotten disfellowship. Okay. Well, after a period of time, he was reinstated. Then as time went by again, he was disfellowshipped a second time, then eventually reinstated, and then he was disfellowshipped a third time. Well, I never knew. I was just rank and file. I never knew what was going on, but I knew something had happened. Okay. Well, it ties into what we're talking about here. Watchtower was making these rules. They're not God inspired, but they were saying that basically if you are married husband and wife and your spouse steps out of the marriage arrangement and has sex with the same sex, okay, which ended up being the case with this one particular brother. I found out years later that Watchtower said that is not considered adultery. That's not considered adultery because you're not having sex with another woman. This brother he was actually bisexual. So because of that, that sister was not, according to Watchtower's bedroom rules, not allowed to divorce him because they didn't consider it adultery, if that's not bad enough. Second of all, she could not remarry. So this is what we're talking about. And so you want to sort of take off?
Yeah. Brother Franz, who was on the governing body at the time, he said he wasn't too sure if all this was right, but the governing body, they voted again. They voted on it, and they all concurred that homosexuality does not break the marital bond. and neither does sex with animals break the marital bond. Well, I'd hate to be the woman or the guy whose spouse was fooling around with animals or involved in homosexuality. I mean, cheating on your wife and committing adultery is bad enough, but to me, the former, homosexuality and bestiality, I mean, that's some pretty sick perversions. But we're going to get into some pretty sick perversions, and I would recommend if there's young children in the room that are listening to this, they might want to leave. I'm assuming that most are all adults. I find it embarrassing for me to even be reading or quoting from this book. Matter of fact, I'm quoting from The Reluctant Apostate by Lloyd Evans, but I think it needs to be said. I think people need to know. Make an opinion if your opinion is the same as the governing body. Now you'll note there's no scriptures being used here. It's just what they think is the right way to go. Okay. The question was, let me start from the beginning. Franz revealed that the governing body was asked to deliberate, I'll say that word again, deliberate, over the case of a witness husband in South Africa who had confessed to having anal sex with another woman.
Now, he was married. He had been married.
Yeah. The question was, would this man's wife be allowed to divorce him if his penis did not enter the other woman's vagina? Big question. The governing body unanimously voted that no, she didn't have the right to a divorce on that, predicated on him having anal sex outside the marriage. The wife was instructed that if she had to stick with her philandering husband at risk of being disfellowshipped for adultery if she remarried without the organization's blessing. What do you think of that? Star 6. Would if you were on the governing body, somebody came to you and said, my husband is having anal sex with the girl next door, and we found out about it, or he confessed, do I have the right to disfellowship him? What would you say if you were on the governing body? Star 6.
Well, let me hop in here, Dick. This is Rick at the control panel. And, we've discussed some of the stuff in the past. But when it comes to anal sex as well as bestiality, I at least know the ruling from the Watchtower on bestiality, or some would say bestiality, and go either way with it. But to give you an idea, when a husband would go out and have sex with a beast, so to speak, whatever it would be, a dog, a lamb, or I know it sounds gross, folks, but whatever it would be, where there'd be no reproduction. In other words, you couldn't have a child. You couldn't reproduce a child. So the Watchtower was using that as a gauge in order to disfellowship. They wouldn't disfellowship or even call it an act of adultery because the beast wouldn't get pregnant from the man. So it's a crazy ruling. So they probably also rule the anal sex as a similar position as they do with the bestiality.
Okay, Rick, well, we thank you for that clarification. I know we talked about that the other day, and yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm just kind of reading out of this book here, but boy, that's some sick stuff. Anal sex is pretty sick. I mean, I would expect any normal woman who found out her husband was having anal sex would have the right to divorce him, at least to my way of thinking. If anybody out there has thinks that the way I think is right, I understand, their reasoning, but wow, anal sex, that's a tough one.
Well, then all the bedroom laws too was another issue.
Yeah, these bedroom laws that they came out with, what we're trying to get at is you have this cognizant dissonance. What makes sense, what seems logical, isn't really logical by the dictates of the governing body. They come up with just so many things that don't make sense. That it causes mental illness. It just causes mental illness.
Well, I think the point that I wanted to bring out is, put yourself in this situation. She's married to this man. She's obviously in love with him. They got married. They had a child. And now he stepped out of the marriage arrangement. And his choice was to have sex with another man or several men, whatever. And yet she cannot divorce him because, according to Watchtower, that is not considered adultery. I remember sitting there in the Kingdom Hall thinking, what in the world is this? So talk about a slap in the face, and now she can't get divorced, and then he's not going to be disfellowshipped. And if she did get a divorce, she would have been marked, right, Rich?
Yep.
She would have been marked in the congregation, and her life was absolutely on hold. She couldn't move forward if she was going to remain being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's just one topic. The other one are the bedroom rules. We know about that, the bedroom laws. There were a lot of couples that things broke up in their marriages with Watchtower's bedroom laws. And it's just crazy. It's insane. And Watchtower really has absolutely no problem stepping into boundaries that don't even belong to them.
Yeah, well said, Connie. I want to take us down a different road right now, if I could. It's in the news. It was reported by friend Joe, was it?
Who, honey? This here?
Yeah.
No, this Daily Mail News.
Okay. Anyway, we were given a link to a murder that happened in England, and we want to bring up about this murder. Yeah, and Connie's going to talk about it, but what we're going to bring up is it appears that an elder was involved. He might have been a ministerial servant, but more than likely he was an elder. The article in the newspaper or on the internet didn't specifically say, but they said he was leading a group in worship. So that's usually the grounds of an elder would be doing that. But he murdered a woman. Now there's always going to be murders. In all religions they have murders and so forth. But in the Jehovah's Witnesses, most witnesses are convinced that the Holy Spirit runs the organization. And they're very, very trusting. You're trusting of anyone that is in the trades, for an example, carpenter, roofer, plumber, whatever. And they really like to hire only Jehovah's Witnesses. I worked for a company that all our subcontractors were all Jehovah's Witnesses from different congregations. And I can tell you something, we had a lot of arguments about money, the way jobs were being done. So what I'd like the audience to know is use the same caution that you would use with a contractor as you would with the Jehovah's Witness. Don't just say, oh, he's a Jehovah's Witness, he'll never cheat me. Because I had a brother-in-law who was a Jehovah's Witness. That'd be another 2-hour program someday, but he cheated me out of $40,000, back in the late 70s, early 80s, when that was a lot of money. Almost, I did lose my home over it, and he got a brand new home out of it. So there are swindles that happen all the time. And one of the biggest swindles that is happening right now is what the governing body is doing to all these congregations, compressing them together and selling off their kingdom halls that the brothers put their sweat, blood, and money into, and now they're owned by the governing body, and they're keeping the money, and guys like Jeffrey Jackson is driving around in a Bentley, and they live really, really high, these governing body members. All the money that they would take your kids' ice cream money and think nothing of it. And if a home burnt down, because mine did, She wouldn't get a cent from, hey, brother Boogie, here's an extra 10 grand to help you in your house because we just sold off a bunch of buildings in Brooklyn and we're billionaires, not millionaires, but billionaires. Anyway, Connie's anxious to tell you about the murder that happened in UK.
Yes. Okay. So this actually took place last July of the year 2023, and it's being circulated through the internet, and it's actually on the Daily Mail News, which is the newspaper with the United Kingdom. I believe it was in Dudley, West Midlands, and I believe that, I know it's the UK, but I believe it's specifically England. Anyway, this is the story. There was a guy by the name of Peter Norgrove, and he was 43 years of age. And there was a woman named Sharon Gordon, and she was 58. He happened to be white, she happened to be black. And they were both Jehovah's Witnesses. And the thing is that her husband had passed away from COVID, so now she's a widow. And she had a home in Dudley, West Midlands, and she wanted to basically have a remodel done. She wanted to have an extension done on her home. And so she was, you know how a lot of witnesses are. They want to just primarily deal with other witnesses because they think that they can trust them. Okay? That's the point right there. Well, beware. Just because someone's a witness, even a baptized witness, does not mean you can trust them.
Oh, no.
Okay, there are plenty, even an elder, okay? Because there are elders and so forth, other witnesses who are dishonest. I mean, we're just speaking the truth. So this is a very sad story. She was a beautiful sister. Her husband had passed away and she wanted this remodel done on her home. So she got in contact with Peter, and he had done some fencing work around her property. And I don't think he was definitely, like we would consider here, a general contractor. You have to meet certain requirements and go before the state. Like in California, you got to go before the state contractor's license board. You have to take the exam and pass it and then become licensed. Well, to me, it seemed like he was pretty much just like a handyman. He was trained by somebody. But anyway, the point is the project should have taken only 4 to 6 weeks. And this guy was so unprofessional. He's dragging it on for 15 months. That's a year and 3 months. And her whole backyard looked like a big garbage pit with all the crap that he had in the back there. Anyway, the contract that they had is that, he wanted 6 payments. So how it works with the contractor, my former husband was a general contractor. You have a written contract, which is based on what the homeowner needs. And you have it all typed out, professionally typed out with the terms and conditions. And in California, the general contractors generally, you put down 1/3, the homeowners put down 1/3, so the contractor can buy the supplies and start the job. And then about halfway into the project, then the second payment is done. And then when everything is finished, there's your final payment. But the contractor also has to get the permit from the building permit. Everything has to be up to code and everything. So that way, it's all honest, it's all legitimate. The homeowner is very happy with the work. If not, then there's a problem there. There can be arbitration, mediation. And anyway, but if everything's done professionally, it runs smoothly. Well, in this case, it didn't. And Peter was milking this sister. They were both witnesses. He had received 5 payments out of the 6. And what ended up happening is he kept dragging it on, and she was getting more frustrated and more frustrated, as you can only imagine. And anyway, he murdered her. Okay, he was full of rage. He ended up murdering her. He took a hammer. If you watch it online, he was there for 4.5 hours, and she had 2 sisters come into her home, 2 sisters from the congregation, complaining privately about his work. And she also was very smart. She had what we would call ring cameras that you have on your house that photo everything. Well, when he came to the home, he had his his clothes on. And anyway, so these two sisters came over and they're talking to Sharon, and they visited. And then when they left, so they were completely aware of the frustration that Sharon had. And let me back up just another point. Sharon also said that she hired Peter to install a radiator. Well, a radiator over there in the UK is a radiator inside your house to keep you warm. And he installed it, but in doing so, he damaged it. So she wanted to be reimbursed. So she sent him a text that day, which was, around July of last year, as a reminder that, hey, I want to be reimbursed for this. And anyway, after these two sisters left, and he had already been there 4.5 hours, he went into the little shed and got his gloves on, and he got this hammer, and he came in. She was in the home, of course, by herself. She's a widow, right? Her husband passed away with COVID. So she's a widow, and she's 58. And he struck her skull 8 times and did severe brain damage. And of course, he killed her. The guy walks out 19, 20 minutes later. You can see it on the Ring, huh? 19? Yeah, walks out 19, 20 minutes later. It's all on the Ring camera. And now he's got blood all over him. The guy was a stupid idiot. Blood all over him in his pants, his trousers, and everything. And he's whistling. He's whistling like he's really happy. I mean, people that generally whistle, they're happy. Okay, well, he's whistling because he just murdered her. Then he goes and gets his tools and everything. He gets in his vehicle. He goes and he's a witness. He goes and picks up his little girl from school. He was late in picking her up. Went over to his mother-in-law's house, dropped off, the weapon in a backyard shed, and the clothes. I don't know how he did that with the clothes. Maybe he had a change of clothes there or something. Anyway, that night he takes his family to the Kingdom Hall. That's why we think he was either an elder or a ministerial servant. But like Rich said, most of them are elders, and he participated in the Zoom call. Anyway, long story short, her friends came by the next day and they found her dead. And it was just horrific. Like I said, this happened July 2023. And he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. And it was horrible. I was saying to Rich, I said, if her husband had still been alive, I'm sure he would have never, ever had that attitude towards her. But we know in the organization, there's that patriarchal attitude of how they look down at women. And especially if he was an elder, that he thought he should have been, his toes should have been kissed. And he obviously didn't like a woman, questioning him. But you know what? She was his boss. This is a professional arrangement. She was his boss. She was paying him for his so-called professional services that she expected from him. And if not, he wouldn't have been able to support his family. But he was just totally milking her. There's also another issue. He happened to be Caucasian and she was Black. So I don't know if that came into play or not, but it was horrific. She was a beautiful sister, and her daughter came online, and her daughter was raised in the organization, and she was heartbroken because she said, now I'm an orphan. I lost my father. Now I lost my mother. And she said, this organization has people believing that just because they're one of Jehovah's Witnesses of the same faith, you can trust them. She says, my life has totally changed because of this man and this incident. So I just wanted to say the attitude of the JWs. I mean, you ever a sister in the organization, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Women were treated second class. And I think this guy thought he was so high and mighty that he thought she was like the red carpet. He could walk all over. And the other thing is that, he had a spirit of rage and he had a spirit of murder on him.
Yeah, kind of going along with Connie's thoughts. A lot of elders think they are the cat's meow, and you better not challenge them. One thing that I've learned about the Jehovah's Witnesses, the elder body, and the servant body in general, is that if you challenge them, say, well, I don't think that's right. I think that's the way you evaluate that scripture, I think is wrong. boy, I tell you what, they get their backs against the wall. I'm an elder and you're not.
Yeah.
I have heard that more than once. And I'll tell you what, if you're a sister and you challenge them, boy, oh boy, you're going to be mocked. If you're not going to, I know an elder, Kenny Nadro, that sat in on he was at a elders meeting, and he said, hey, listen, I said, Russia is being fragmented into a whole bunch of different countries right now. Russia can't be the king of the north like the Watchtower says. He walked out of that meeting on the spot, disfellowshipped. So just be mindful that if you're dealing with Jehovah's Witnesses, don't put your guard down. Keep your guard up like you would any contractor or anybody.
And do your research.
Yeah, do your research. Yeah.
I was going to say what you can do. I mean, I'm sure the United Kingdom has the same thing, but I'm originally from California. So what you do is you contact the California Contractor State License Board in Sacramento, and you contact them to see if, first of all, if the contractor is licensed or if that person is a handyman. Now, if he's licensed, the Contractor State License Board in California or any of these states will have that person's license. So that's number one. Number two, you want to check to see if there are any accusations, charges, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Strikes, any strikes, I'll say strikes, against that general contractor. And if so, then it'll be notified in their computer, and you will know that. So you need to really do your research rather than just assuming, oh, you know what, he's a brother, he's going to give me a good deal. I just wanted to tell you, this project that this gal, Sharon Gordon, I was in Europe back in '89, and this project was about 29,000 pounds. I'm going to round it and say 30,000 pounds. Okay. Back then in 1989, that would have been like $45,000 US dollars. Okay. I'm not sure the equivalency of what it is today, but it was a huge expense. This project was, and she already had paid 5 out of the 6 installments, for this. So it was not a very cheap project that he was doing, and he basically was milking her. So just because somebody is a JW, you have to be very careful, and that's one thing the organization, he's just a brother, you can trust the brothers. Well, no, you can't. No, you can't. This man had so much anger and rage towards her, and she was just standing up for her rights to be able to get the job professionally done. It was really obvious he didn't know what in the heck he was doing. So we just wanted to share that with you tonight.
Yeah, and just add to what Connie was saying, I just alluded to it a moment ago. Elders do not like to be challenged about anything, particularly if you are a woman. Mm-hmm. So if you don't get anything out of this program tonight, get this. Do your due diligence. Check out who these elders are. Check out their background. These elders aren't necessarily professional counselors. If you have marital problems, seek a professional counselor. If you have any kind of problems, do your due diligence. If you have some kind of a mental illness, don't go to the elders. They probably get worse PTSD than you do. They believe in the new life thing. It's not true.
Issues themselves.
Yeah.
They have family issues themselves. Did you want to bring up the example about the two sisters, Rich?
What three sisters?
About the abortion?
Oh, yeah. Connie wanted me to bring. I heard this story from an elder from a neighboring congregation, not the one that I was in, which was the Lowell congregation. This sister gets pregnant. And sister number one gets pregnant. And, she's starting to show with the other sisters, oh, look at that, the baby lump. So the elders pull her in the back room. Are you pregnant? Yes, I am. What happened? So I'm not going to tell you. So they disfellowship her. But she kept going to the meetings. She wanted to be reinstated. Well, subsequent to that, this other sister number 2, her father is an elder. She gets pregnant. She has an abortion. She doesn't tell anybody. It's a big secret. Nobody knows. The parents don't know. Nobody knows. There's another sister in this congregation that got pregnant. This is sister number 3. And this sister had an abortion, and she evidently thought sister number 2, she sought out sister number 2, and some well, listen, don't tell anybody, whatever you don't tell anybody, here's where you go to get an abortion, here's what you have to do, and so forth. So sister number 3, she's loaded with guilt. She goes to the elders and said, I had an abortion. And the brothers, of course, they have to probe into it. Who got you pregnant and all this stuff? Was it a brother at the Kingdom Hall? All that stuff they want to know. And she slipped. She says, well, they said to her, how'd you know where to go to get an abortion? Well, sister number two, sister number 2 got an abortion. Well, the elder, the guy, the number 2's father was an elder. Well, they didn't want him to step down. They didn't want to announce that the daughter had been publicly reproved or disfellowshipped. So they gave her restriction for a year, and she couldn't go to her sister's wedding. That was her punishment. Now the other sister, they couldn't punish her the same. They had to give her the same penalty as sister number 2, private reproof and restriction for a year. But the other sister number 1, well, that sister was disfellowship. She went to the meetings for quite a while, 3 or 4 months, didn't reinstate her. Then she left the congregation and she married this guy. And a little sidebar on the story, the elders had to do this investigation. Sister number 2 would not tell the elders, who got her pregnant. So there was this brother that they thought were friendly. So they pull him in and they ask him, did you get sister number 2 pregnant? And he goes, no, I never touched her. But he had no right knowing that she was pregnant. He had no right. But they feel they have to do an investigation. Well, that story, that happened to a congregation very close to the one I was in. That just goes to show you, they have different rules for who you are. If you're an elder and you stray on your marriage, then they feel you're vital to the congregation, they'll let you stay in that position. But if you're just a rank and file, they'll disfellowship you.
Yeah, the thing I wanted to say in reference to this one, Rich told me this story. I was very surprised. I think the first thing that I learned from it, so that it's real clear here, there were 3 different sisters that got pregnant. The first one that got pregnant is she did not have an abortion. She did get the fellowship for fornicating, but apparently it was with someone who was outside of the congregation. He was not a witness, but she was not about to tell who it was. She wanted to protect her own privacy, but she was disfellowshipped and trying to come back. I guess she never was reinstated, but what ended up happening is she left the organization and married this guy and, lived her own life. But this is the one that bothers me, is number 2. Number 2 was a daughter to an elder. Now, we know there's a different set of rules for the rank and file kids versus the elders' kids. And so this daughter got pregnant, most likely with someone in the congregation or organization, and her father was an elder. Now, when a kid of an elder gets disfellowshipped, that's a real, I don't know how to describe it. That is horrific in the JW organization, because generally she would have been disfellowshipped, but the father, because he can't control his family, that's one of the requirements. He would have had to step down as an elder, which meant he would have had a lot of shame brought on his name and his family's name and everyone in his family. But the daughter had the abortion to try to hide it. Well, she had the abortion. Okay, she murdered the baby. The father got to remain being an elder. But the thing is that she was never disciplined or anything. And that's because she was an elder's kid. Okay, so, and the third one was the last example. But the point that I wanted to make is, see, each, it's not fair. The set of rules all vary. And I know that the set of rules also vary according to the group of elders that are in the congregation as well. So this is the whole point with all of us talking about this issue tonight. Is it brainwashing? Is it insanity? Or is it craziness? Well, it's a little bit of everything. The thing is that the organization is not inspired by God's Holy Spirit. These are men that are making these rules based on their own congregations, but also with the organization as well. But there is a different set of rules for the elders' kids and for the regular rank and file. So, this is something for people to really, really understand and understand it, because this probably doesn't happen to you, but I know we had a sister in our congregation and she got pregnant and her father was an elder. And anyway, he had to step down. Yeah, he had to step down. But anyway, there are situations where young ladies get pregnant and, they want to hide it because they don't want to be disfellowshipped. They want to sort of, hide the mistakes. They don't want their father to. Well, and that's the other thing I said to Rich. She would have been disfellowshipped. Most likely, if she was under 18, she would have been kicked out of the house. How would she have been able to? I'm not justifying it. I'm just explaining the JW reasoning. How would she have been able to financially support herself and the baby? And she's kicked out of the house. Who's going to take care of her? So instead, she decided to have an abortion, and the father got to remain being an elder. So anyway, there's a lot of hypocrisy and corruption, and this is what goes on in the world of the JWs.
You've covered it so well, all three stories. I have one little comment.
Mm-hmm.
It's Pixie. In all three stories, although they're very different topics, they're all very sad and some are strange and all different topics. It all shows an ignorance of the law. The rank and file members have given their power away to the governing body. In the first story, the bedroom issues were between that couple legally, and a woman under those instances has a grounds for divorce under the law in the state or country she lives in, and in most cases she would be granted one, and in some countries that man would go to a public hanging for animal abuse.
Right.
In the second story, it's being solved. He was not a contractor. Again, a violation of the law. Murder, of course, is a violation of the law. Poor sister, I grieve for her. But again, ignorance of the law. They didn't know to call a licensed contractor. He should have had a team of people on a job that big and the right kind of equipment and stuff. And in the third case, all three of those women have a right to privacy between themselves and their doctor. And there's not a single soul on earth besides the med team and the woman that should even know about that. And it's really sad that the witnesses don't know that between their doctor or their lawyer or their clergy, it's supposed to be totally sealed.
Right.
So that's all I have to say. And you did a good job on all three stories.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Pixie, for tuning in here. I was going to say two thoughts I wanted to make. I have heard that, there have been sisters that had an abortion, and Watchtowers like the Nazis, that somehow they've tried to have like maybe a nurse in a hospital violate, the HIPAA laws and find out if a Jehovah's Witness that came in had an abortion and then report that information back to the elders. I have heard of that in the past. So that's
Well-
one thing I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say in reference to this Peter Norgrove, he worked at this woman's house for 4.5 hours. It shows it on the Ring camera, and it was premeditated. He was so angry. He put the gloves on, grabbed the hammer, and walked in. That was all premeditated murder. And
Horrific
even-
case, it really was.
Yep, he had it
But
all.
when I look at how I was rooked out of a screen door that was broken on purpose, and there was only one company that could fix it, so I called them. The so-called brother wanted my insurance money to fix a problem that he wasn't trained to fix, and couldn't solve that screen door. He didn't have access to that. Only one company in 3 counties, or maybe even the whole state, had that product. So
Right.
I'm glad there's no murder involved, but the contracting thing is all over the world. It's a problem with these contracting scandals. They try to extort property. They're taking the kingdom halls away from people that paid for them. All of these things are crimes.
Right.
And they're saying, oh, this is a sin, or this is something the elders need to look at. No, they're crimes. So
They are
again, I thank you for covering it, and people need to know what the law is. They need to know this just isn't some inside witness gossip. These are crimes worldwide.
Right, exactly, Pixie. And I have a friend that's listening in right now from California. I won't mention her name, but she's a wonderful person. She's out of the organization. She told me just the other day, yesterday actually, that her mother, who's a JW, had a brother come and do some electrical work for her. And this was something ago. Anyway, time went by and the mother thought, well, if I need any other work done on my house, I might consider having this brother come back. Well, my friend who's listening right now, she said that this man that was a JW found out, he was doing home repairs and so forth. He murdered somebody. He murdered someone. And my friend said, Connie, that could have been my mom. That could have been my mom. He could have come in, had she called him back and said, hey, I need something else done. And it could have directly affected my family, like what happened to Sharon Gordon's and her daughter. So
yeah, well, that's true. Your contractor is not only a person who's studied a 1,000-page test on his trade, but he's also licensed and bonded. And so those things are important. People need to know that. Well, y'all have a good evening, and I look forward to the rest of the shows. Take care.
Thank you,
Pixie. All right, folks, we only got a minute or two left. Let me just leave everybody with this. Jehovah's Witnesses have proven to be liars, particularly the governing body. They're both prophets. They're scam artists. That organization is worth billions of dollars. And so they're very, very good scammers. There is no such thing as new light. You do the history of the Jehovah's Witnesses. David Reed's got a really good book, Index of Watchtower Errors, and you can see all the flip-flops and stuff that they've done, all the policies that have changed, the scriptures that they've twisted. JWFacts.com is another place you should check out. There is no such thing as new light. Anything that they've written down, they've always said this comes directly from Jehovah God to the anointed. And we're putting it on paper. It's like, these aren't our thoughts. Then you come to find out all they do is deliberate. The writing staff is all they do is they write a paragraph and they'll vote on it. They vote on everything. These are man-made regulations, laws, and scriptures that's taken away from the scriptures and have added to it. This organization is a fraud. So we thank you all for listening.
Hey, Dick, Dick, hold on one second. We do have a lot of people. We'll give you a few more minutes here. Because of the volume of people calling in here tonight, we have a number of people calling in that may want to speak up and talk. So before we cut the program loose, if someone would like to say hello to Rich and Connie, well, now's the time to do it. Hit *6 on your telephone pad. Did you hear something here tonight that you want to discuss with them? Go ahead, you run with us. Go ahead, speak up. All right, looks like we've got...
Hey guys, this is Eric.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, I thought you had a really you have a really good show tonight, both you and Constance. And what was I gonna say? Sorry, I'm having a mental part. I'm sorry, I'm losing my. What were we talk? What was the subject? And it'll re-jar me.
Well, we were pretty much talking about mental illness, and it was caused by all the flip-flops that the Watchtower has told people for years.
And then the murder.
Yeah, and then we talked about the murder.
The murder. That's what I was going to talk about. Not just the murder. I'm sure Rick's going to cover it, so I won't get into it too much. But even in my congregation, there was a contractor. Now this guy was really good, like he's not bad, decent contractor, but he charged he was a brother, and he charged like 6 or 7 times the price. And it's like, dude, you're just installing the door. At some point, he was ripping the brothers and sisters off, and he stumbled some out of the organization, which is great. They said this ain't God's organization if this is how people treat each other, because he gave a price, but then the price kept increasing, and they found out they were being screwed, not by quality, but by quantity, price. Mm-hmm. And it's like what you guys were saying, trust the brothers. And it's like, these men, they're not appointed by God, and you don't know who you're actually really dealing with, and I feel really bad for that sister in England, because she got screwed over in more ways than one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're right. You have to do your due diligence. We've had contractors here at our home, and what we do is we get 3 or 4 estimates. And, some of these guys come to the door and they have a big crucifix hanging off their neck, and they act so religious. It doesn't mean anything, because some of the prices that these people that walk in our door with a big crucifix on their hanging on their neck, and they think, well, you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, you're not going to get other bids. Well, we do. We get bids for all the work we've had done on this house, and we found out that the people that gave us the best deals were the ones without the crucifix on their hanging off their neck. Because one guy came in with a crucifix that was, like a foot long and a foot wide. It was, so I would just say, to go along with your thought, do your due diligence. You might want to hire Jehovah's Witnesses, but some will do real good work, but they're going to charge you really, really high. So get estimates, get written estimates.
Well, and you want a written contract. That's the key. Yeah. You want a written contract for each project, and then if there's anything additional, you finish that contract, then you move on to the second one. But
there's a contractor in Rhode Island who trained me, and I was already skilled in auto body spraying, finishing painting, but he trained me how to do the cabinet work and stuff of the organization. And this guy actually was so talented and so good at what he did that he didn't work with the witnesses. He didn't want their money, and he didn't want to deal with them. He had high, rich clientele because I'm just going to swear, he was the shit. Guy's the GOAT. He used to, I don't know if he's still alive. He was it was 8 years ago. He was 69 years old, but 69 years old, he'd go, nobody works harder than I do, because he was a hard worker. And there are always good, talented people in the organization too that don't fall into that. But also, can't you see how with this murder that this guy, the witnesses aren't the most educated, and you're not taught quality of work ethic and life really, because the end is coming at any moment. And so you really don't know what you're getting. But thanks, guys. I thought you had a great show, and that was my 2 cents.
Oh, thank you, Derek. And just for clarification purposes, GOAT stands the greatest of all time, not the kind of goat with the sheep and the goats. That guy who was
sorry.
was the best there was. And as a matter of fact, I have a car that needs painting, so maybe I'll look him up. Star 6. Anybody has any thoughts?
630, you're on with us. 630, go ahead. Speak up, 630, you're on with us. All right, let's go to 308.
Yeah, this is Debbie. Thank you guys for that. That was a really good show. I thought so too. And when you brought up about one of the big things that really just ruined any respect I had for the elders, and my father was an elder, you know, as far back as when the elder arrangements started. But when he died in 2000, and I went in his briefcase just to get his Bible, but I saw that Shepherding the Flock book. And I didn't even know it existed. And I just picked it up. And of course, it said that it was not for anybody else to read except an elder. So, you know, I, being a human, not just a woman, but a human, period. I looked into I read that part about the not being considered adultery if a man had a homosexual relationship with another man or with an animal. And I was absolutely disgusted and angered. And I thought that was the most insane. I just thought it was just unbelievable that any man who was an elder could actually go along with that. I don't care if it had anything to do with them getting pregnant or not. It was the actual sex act. And I guarantee you, if a woman went out there and had sex with another woman, any kind of sex with anything other than a man, she would have been kicked out, you know, of the marriage arrangement instantly and disfellowshipped. I mean, I believe that with all my heart, but that's what would have happened to her. That only the man could have gotten away with that. Because, but that right there ended any respect for the organization I've ever would have had just over that one thing. Because a huge thing, you know, and like we know, it's a very patriarchal organization, and women are on there to wait on the men, have babies, and, you know, do what they're told. And that's basically what a woman's position.
You're right.
Yeah, cook and clean. Oh,
Right.
and
They don't.
go ahead.
They never will.
Right. But they would also turn around and say, but the women are a large army. Who does most of the preaching work? Women. Who does all the scut work and everything? The women. But that's just, you know, the whole freaking world always look down on women. And then, of course, they blame it on, well, Eve, you know, because she did this and that. And then the whole human race is cursed. I mean, the whole female side of the human race, supposedly, were cursed because of what Eve did by making it painful to have babies, you know. So it seems like the whole system is down on the female sex, period. But anyway, yeah. And
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I really do. And yeah, you know, a woman should be able to get a divorce if her husband's penis is in the butt of another woman or guy. It doesn't matter. She should be allowed to have a divorce. And there's something I wanted to say on that. I think last week Gilbert came on and he said something that really impacted me. I said, oh, this is a pretty smart guy, this Gilbert. And that is, there was no testosterone in the governing body. I said, what does he mean by that? And then, you know, I was talking with Connie in it, and it just became really kind of clear that there was only one brother that we know of that fathered any children that are on the governing body. Now, we also know the governing body has been hiding pedophilia for a long, long time. And the governing body, I guess they're not going to disfellowship someone for pedophilia. So, you know, and we got the Anthony Morris thing down there in Pennsylvania, and the pedophilia that's going along there. And he was, you know, some kicked out of the organization, or not kicked out of the organization, but off of the body. But it makes you wonder, what does Gilbert know that we don't? And they're not those 8 guys. Only one of them fathered a child.
Well, and they demasculate men in the organization. That's what Gilbert was trying to say. That they don't want men's men.
Yeah. Like me.
Right. So, a lot of them, they can't stand up. Pretty much, to be a good elder or to be selected as an elder, you're nothing more than a yes man. Now, there are some elders that are great guys, but that's what this organization does. It demasculates men.
Yeah, and the elders are not immune to having mental illness either. A lot of the elders, and like y'all said, have PTSD. Well, a lot of them do. A lot of them are bipolar because I know my dad got jacked around so bad in so many instances where they were using him for everything. The Watchtower Society, because he was an accountant, they wanted him to. I hear myself.
Oh, yeah, a little echo there, Debbie. I just want to make an announcement. We got about 5 minutes here. Barbara Anderson, if you can hear me, we've got about 5 minutes, and we'll start your program. Watchtower Insider, Barbara Anderson tells all. So we got about 5 minutes to that program. So go ahead, finish up, Debbie. Then we get room for one more call. Go ahead.
This has nothing to do whatsoever with what we were talking about. But is your name Dick or Rich?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. No, Connie married 2 guys. One guy's name was Dick, and the other guy's name was Rich. I'll clear that up since you asked. When I get married to Connie, my mother used to call me Rich, and everybody else in the whole world called me Dick. And my mother was a very loving, kind person. So I asked Connie if she would call me Rich. Everybody else knows me as Dick. And part of the reasoning behind that is that the word Dick has a sexual connotation to it. I didn't really like it. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And I didn't really like it. And I was starting with a new marriage, a new house in a new state, and I wanted a new name. So at 75, I changed from Dick to Rich, and I like it better. So, but I'll answer to either one. Doesn't matter. I know it's hard for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, tonight's the first time that I ever heard Rick call me Rich. So Rich and Connie, but it doesn't matter to me. I just like it when Connie calls me Rich. It has a warm feeling for me. Thank you for asking.
Sweet. That is so sweet. I'm so glad you cleared that up. I'm going to try to remember to call you Rich then from now on.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you both. Okay. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
All right. Did 603 want to say something? Now's the time to speak. We only got a couple of minutes left. Okay. Guess they don't want to speak up. 603. 630. I'm sorry. 630. Did you want to say something? I guess not. But anyways, wait, no. The reason why.
Yeah, Rick.
Go ahead. Yeah, you're on with us.
Hey, Rick, how you doing? It's Mark. How are you?
Good.
How's it going?
Good.
I just want to say hello. Hope you're doing very well. The show is very interesting and very good. And they're covering a lot of very important stuff here tonight that I very much totally agree with. And yes, as we know, there's a lot of major corruption and hypocrisy among the Watchtower and the Jehovah's Witnesses. I've seen it ever since I was a little kid. I've seen it like forever in my personal experience. So I'm with you there in every way. And what I see is only getting far worse, Rick. It really is. But I hope sooner or later they're going to pay the price. I really do.
Well, we got a lot of noise in your background there, Mark. So thank you for dialing in with us. Your phone's making a lot of noise. Let's go to Apostle Babe. We got Linda James, Apostle Babe. Go ahead, Linda.
Hey, Linda.
I I did this on accident, but I do think, as I was listening, that Rich is very endearing. I've just been calling you Bordy, but I do like Rich.
You don't come late to something.
Feeling it's like, oh, you guys are so in love, so cool.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So wrap it up then, Dick and Connie. I said Dick, but Dick, you know I can call you Dick. I mean, I've known you Dick all my life. It'd be hard to change over, but we know you Dick and Rich both. But thank you for being honest. I think that was, that's one thing I'll say about you, Dick, is you're an honest man. You speak the truth. And even the stuff tonight, we had a lot of callers come in tonight, seriously, and a lot of people listening in on the phone lines, on our platforms. So a very good job. Very good job. And you touch some areas that, other people weren't willing to touch, but thank you for doing that and clearing some things up. Yep.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's right. We
Well,
always feel great after a program.
well, thank you.
We really do.
Now, what we'll do here is we will be, of course, you're filling in tonight for the Spanish program we had usually at this time on Saturday every other week. Now, you'll be back on with us next week. You have your own program at 9:30. Fran and Joe are not with us any longer on our network. So we do have you guys coming in, and you'll be coming in their place, which will be 9:30 beginning next Saturday night. So looking forward to your program, and keep up the good work. We're really glad that you guys could come on and you did your homework, and I'm very pleased with how you handled your program tonight. Thank you, Dick and Connie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to end the stream right now, but we got Barbara Anderson. She's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Now, Barbara Anderson, she's spilling the beans on the Watchtower. And tonight she's going to be talking about the history of Watchtower's use of newspapers to deceive. Well, you're probably saying, well, what is that all about? Well, let's end the stream here. Barbara will be on with us next, and she'll be able to tell us all about it. So looking forward to Barbara Anderson coming on next right here on the 6 Screens Tell the Network. All right.